Hey, this is a response video to Murder to Death. Um, Specifically, your video on disrobing Western thought. Um, First of all, I just want to say I agree with all your points, but I just wanted to add a few things. I really like how you mentioned logic is, brain chemistry as much as emotions are. So this whole dismissiveness of emotions, um, or even spiritual experiences, which they also, fire off as brain chemistry. It's all brain chemistry. Our entire experience is generated by the brain. Um, and I mean, and not to materialize um, Satori experiences, but they say the same sort of thing um, in how they describe, holy crap, my outer experiences are the inner. There is no difference. All of this is mind. Um, I've heard some people argue that that is the essence of a Kensho or Satori experience. That is, discovering uh, the nature of our brains making reality. But it could be more, and I do think it's more. But at any rate, that fundamental humbleness, realizing to the degree our brains kind of construct this, it's almost like a holographic reality. And we don't know for sure if logic is actually more objective than emotions. Sure, it has a particular ability to um, discern, to pull apart. It's very effective in that way. Um, Now, I like to think of logic as, and the analytical mind and the reasoning mind, the interpreting mind, um, that part of our brain chemistry, of our experience of having a mind, is valuable, but it's not the only component. And what I tend to see, I don't know if you've read Robert Anton Wilson's book Prometheus Rising, or any of the theories on the Eighth Circuit model of consciousness, um, but it sort of is arguing the same idea. We have our brain is kind of made up of like they call them circuits, but 8 types of brains, eight different aspects of our brains at the very least. Um, there's the instinctual, sensory. There's the emotional. There's the symbolic, rational. Um, and then there's the holistic brain, the more right brain functions, the spiritual brain. I mean, um, it's really this diverse organism, this holistic organism with so many parts. Um, and logical thinking is just one part of that brain chemistry. Um, and it alone cannot. I don't believe it could even come close to understanding the whole. And the fact that yes, logic and rational thinking um, makes abstract the world. And I like how you said thought is the cessation of experience. Um, I think thought is itself, thinking itself, though, is a form of experience. It's not, ironically, I don't know how to word this better, it's just not experienced that way. Well, I mean, for instance, you kind of just get lost in your thought. You end up being a thinker, but not being able to think about thought. That's another point you brought up. I would love to have a dialogue, actually, and a conversation with people who tend to be who tend to feel logic and rationality and empiricism are the only ways, objectivity, whatever that is, are the only ways uh, to understand reality. The only. And they also tend to have this dismissiveness or sentimentality, like, oh, emotions, sentimental, those are nice. But if you really want to figure it out, you got to think logically. I think logic has a very important role, as much as emotion, as much as spiritual experience, the holistic experience. Um, but I mean, I don't know, and again, I don't want to call it a complete cessation of experience. It is a fragmenting of it. Um, at least in my own experience meditating and getting from the little that I've been doing recently, you kind of begin to experience your thoughts, and I guess that's called intelligence squared. Thinking about thoughts or observing your thoughts, reflecting upon. Um, I think scientists and philosophers and mathematicians would be great to do that, because I think that would empower your thoughts more. It would free them up from just being a thinker, identifying with this particular activity, um, and really understanding how that activity comes to be. I'm just going to quote Shinzen Young here. I don't know if you're familiar with him, um, meditation teacher, Zen teacher. Uh, he says, you cease to see thoughts, or you cease to believe in self as a thing, and instead self becomes an activity that you observe. In the same way, I believe our thoughts can become activities that we can observe. Anyway, I do agree on your point. I'm just saying, um, perhaps this is some kind of dialogue or interjection we can give, I don't know, in conversations in the future. I would love to hear a more rationalist-oriented person, I guess, respond to this idea. Um, Intelligence squared, logic observed as, logic reflected upon. And not entirely logically, just pure observation, pure awareness. This is why I think meditation is so important, whether you're emotional, you're logical, you're spiritual. Um, it's a way to see how we generate the processes in ourselves, and thereby just not be limited by those same processes, but to have those activities as an expression of existing as a human being. I think it helps us become more balanced. Um, at any rate, final point. Um, Thought and thinking, I believe, evolutionarily speaking, here's a way to reflect on it. Evolutionarily speaking, um, our brain at least, interprets reality as this three-dimensional thing. Um, what thoughts and logic and analytical thinking and empirical thinking and materialistic thinking tend to be is an abstraction of a more concrete experience of being an object in a three-dimensional reality. It's almost as if, like, the software of the hardware, like the software that has analyzed its reality and kind of created this little mapping orientation abstraction to help get around, to help try to figure stuff out, you know. And if you look at language, language is full of physical descriptions, especially philosophy. Philosophy is the most physical language. Um, discerning, analyzing. Um, I mean, there's so many words, and I wish I could quote this for you. Says Jean Gebser, um, quote from the book. He has this whole big paragraph. He breaks down, the etymology of philosophical words that are so commonly used, and they're all to do with physical things, moving, turning around, opening up, stepping back. So our thinking is physical. It's a physical activity. Um, so if that's the only world it sees, if the abstraction is limited to this sort of three-dimensional thing, then it's not going to be able to perceive other things. It's going to think that that's all there is because that's all it can do. But thinking is not all we are, luckily, and that's the great part, because I think that's where meditation comes in, where reflection comes in, and the humbling aspects of experiencing emotions and feelings, and being able to be an observer of all of those things as a whole, and somehow maybe gaining insight. As far as I know, even the ancient Greek philosophers, who I think all about these physical, geometric thinking and logic, they were, some of them, I believe, were meditators. They did contemplative concentration, silencing the mind. Why don't modern philosophers do that? They have these busy, chattering minds, and they've forgotten to, silence is just as important as the noise that their brains generate. At any rate, thank you again, and great video.